1996 was yet another year without a mainline Sonic game. The Sega Saturn was out, but there was no mainline Sonic game for it. The closest he had to one was Sonic 3D Blast, a game that was not 3D or a blast, but that's the main one we'll take a look at here. But first, let's check our manuals, starting with the Japanese one. So Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles all travel to a place called Flicky Island to find Chaos Emeralds, because of course they do. Why Knuckles though? I don't know. Eggman also happens to be looking for the Chaos Emeralds there as well, because of course he is. Flickies are those birds we have discussed previously from the game Flicky, but now they are more well associated with Sonic than Flicky, and they can help lead to the Chaos Emeralds. They also travel through large rings, and these rings teleport them to a different area, which is interesting because that's what the present live-action Sonic movies use the rings for, as teleporters. So apparently there is some lore backing that up. Eggman, as usual, is trapping the Flickies, and Sonic, he's not going to stand for that. Meanwhile, on the English version, the same thing happens. That's right. For one of our first times ever, we have the exact same thing happening, even down to the teleporting rings, and that's really nice. So now that we know what we need to, let's jump into the game.
Sonic 3D Blast has hit the mainland, spinning, smashing, gaining power as he tears along, swirling blue lightning.
New Sonic 3D Blast for Sega Saturn and Sega Genesis.
Stay in your home.
Starting off, we get this really ugly Sonic 3D cutscene, which is crazy this was able to run on the Genesis. Like, yeah, it was at the end of its life, but that's still impressive as hell. Also, the cutscenes tell the actual story in case you didn't read the manual, which is also kind of rare for its time. It looks like the 3D models were made and then shrunk into sprites to be 2D but appear 3D. This is a pre-render method that happened in games like Donkey Kong and Super Mario RPG. Sonic 3D Blast is an isometric game, and well, in the past I said I don't like isometric games. I've actually somewhat changed my mind. Isometric RPGs are fantastic, I love those. I just stand by isometric platformers being bad. The biggest problem is it can be quite tricky to figure out where you will land when you jump or attack. And this game is no exception, as anytime it required me to be precise with jumps, it felt like a coin flip to whether I would be precise or not. The goal of this one is to collect all the Flickies and then hop into a giant ring to be teleported. You also want to get all Chaos Emeralds as usual, which you can do by giving Knuckles or Tails 50 coins and they'll take you to a bonus stage to try. So really one big difference is this is a collect-a-thon, and that's not really bad at all. I like the idea of a Sonic collect-a-thon, I just don't like the execution, because while this doesn't feel bad, and it can feel kind of fun, it gets old very quick, so quick, and it just becomes tedious and sometimes frustrating. And in terms of difficulty, I don't know that it's that hard, but it drags on for far too long and becomes boring very quickly. And losing your lives to start over, that might make people quit right there, because then it's going to be extra boring. In the short time you have seen me play, you have seen all there is. Sure, the stages might have gimmicks, but that really doesn't change up that much. And sure, each stage looks a little different, but that really does not change up that much. The big compliment I have for it, though, is the music is pretty damn good, and some of these songs even carry over into Sonic Adventure, which is even better because then I can listen to the good music while playing a better game. Now, there is a Saturn version that looks better. The main reason I played the Genesis version is because it's much easier to get a hold of, and for some reason I have 4 copies of it, whereas the Saturn version I have 0. Saturn also has better opening cutscenes with more fluid animations. On the downside though, the Saturn music is entirely different and I just like the Genesis version better. The Saturn does have an actual 3D model though, only on the bonus stage, and that's pretty cool. By this time, everyone was already expecting a full 3D Sonic game, and this is what we got, so obviously that didn't make people happy. Mario 64 was already out and showing how good 3D platformers could be, and Sonic was behind. Cancelled 3D project after cancelled 3D project. Sonic Extreme was one of such we have footage of, and I can't say this would have went well at all. And if Sonic 3D Blast came out as a side game in the year, I'm sure it would have been fine. But it coming out as the closest to a mainline game was not gonna cut it. Now we did get other games. Sonic the Fighters was a fully 3D game. I'd argue it's Sonic's first 3D game. It was an arcade exclusive where you fight as mainline Sonic characters, and also little known ones like Bark, Bean, and Knack. Although Knack, you could argue, was not little known at this time and was actually almost like mainline Sonic, which is weird to think about because he's like nothing now. This is one I own on my Xbox and it can be fun to play with people. We also had Sonic Blast, and this was a more traditional Sonic game that was so ugly I had to sit in a dark room for a while afterwards to let my eyes recover. I'm gonna say it was kinda meh. And Sonic also has his scariest game yet, Sonic Schoolhouse, an educational game where you choose a horrifying animal to be and you go through Sonic's schoolhouse as he teaches you things. Well, there is no inherent scariness, it is an accidental horror vibe, mainly from its looks. And these looks inspired such horror titles as Baldi's Basics. Sonic also got a cameo in Nights into Dreams. Christmas Nights was a cool bonus disc given to Sega Saturn users, and playing as Sonic was a dope extra in it. You either got it from Saturn magazines or the purchase of a Sega Saturn. TV-wise, he had a Christmas special called Sonic's Christmas Blast, which was part of the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog show, and it even had Sally Acorn in it. He also had his first movie, which was not tied into anything else. It was this 2-part Japanese thing that was dubbed into English and released as one full movie, which we call the Sonic OVA. And it's got a weird spot in my heart. On one hand, the art can be really good in spots, and Metal Sonic is always cool as shit to me. Plus, Knuckles wears a silly hat, and I like that too, and there's tons of scenes inspired by the games. On the other hand, the voice acting hurts to listen to for most characters, and the story isn't great. Robotnik is also possibly a pedo. I'm not positive on that, but he has a weird romance dynamic with what I think is a child, and if she isn't, she sure acts like one. I don't really know. I'd give this like a 5 out of 10. And who could forget Sonic the Hedgehog the album, an electronic techno music album filled with songs inspired by the Blue Hedgehog. This was an officially published Sega album that feels hella 90s. And Sonic also got more Puffin books. These were books with stats and rules you read. You choose your adventure and you keep track of the stats. It's sort of like playing D&D by yourself, but Sonic-wise. These actually started in 1993, but I didn't find out about it until now, because this is the year that they ended. Anyway, let's jump into the comics. At Archie, we have issues 30 through 41. Some stuff going on here is Sonic's Uncle Chuck is back as a robot. Snively briefly took over Robotnik's job. Sonic and a skunk named Jeffrey St. John are competing for Sally's love. Sonic goes inside of his friends, Magic School Bus style, to fight off sickness for them. And there's this dope panel about how to turn Sonic and Knuckles into Super Sonic and Hyper Knuckles. Robotnik is becoming far more militaristic with his robots, and we also learn more about Knuckles' home. It's a big futuristic city, and this comet from the sky was going to kill them all, so they mined Chaos Emeralds and used it to make the floating island float so the comet wouldn't hit. But then it kept floating. One guy named Dimitri wanted to get down, but the other echidnas were like, yeah, it's too dangerous, we could fall very quickly and die. So Dimitri took 6 of the 7 Chaos Emeralds so that one of them kept it floating, and then he became this living Chaos Emerald. And the one emerald staying up there on the island, I think, is supposed to be the Master Emerald. So then Dimitri became this evil living Chaos Emerald, but then the ceiling fell on top of him and crushed him. And now Echidna after Echidna passes down the duty of guarding the last Chaos Emerald there, which I think is also interesting, because if Knuckles is like basically the last Echidna, then he's guarding a civilization that's already gone. So if that falls, is that really going to do a lot? Also, I don't really like this version of Knuckles' story. There are things that have potential there, I just don't think it works for me. I definitely like the Sonic Adventure version better. Another thing that doesn't work for me is Sonic goes on this weird spiritual journey to discover that the emeralds and rings are related, but nothing ever comes of that. Then we hop to fighting Sally Acorn's father, who has this really cool outfit, but he says dumb shit like, "Witless female." Sonic keeps retconning itself by accident, so I ignore it, and then it keeps doing stuff like really wanting to be a different comic really badly. But on the good side, they have this Mecha Sonic, and I love its design. This is cool as shit to me. It gives me like old school Transformer comics vibes. One Badnik even says, "Mecha, wow." So he starts fighting Bunny Rabbit, and she starts spitting some stuff about real-world Yankees, which confused me. Like, I knew she had this southern accent, but I didn't realize she was like Earth Southern, I guess, because we're on Mobius. So I was, her mentioning like real world events, I was like, okay, interesting. I'm gonna just throw that away as nothing, probably. But then in the next thing, she literally says, "The South will rise again," as like her war cry. And that was extra shocking, because like, hold up, so slavery happened, and Bunny Rabbit was anti-Union and pro-Confederate then? Well, on a team called the Freedom Fighters? I know I complained about this being the more boring comic, but it just became less boring. But not in the way I was meaning at all. Now I'm interested because, and you know, I don't even know what to make of this. What do I do with this info? Okay, well anyway, here's a badass panel. The thing about this Mecha Sonic is that it's a roboticized Sonic. So now that he's normal Sonic again, they fucking jailed him for his crimes. He claims he didn't get roboticized willingly and Knack caused it. Which makes sense, right? Why would he? But for some reason everyone is stupid and doesn't believe him despite how much he's fought Robotnik for 40-ish issues at this point. Amy even shows up briefly, and it's very clear she's supposed to be a child here and not a love interest, and that Sally is his love interest. We also have a few spin-offs, one where the Chaotix and Knuckles are teamed up and go against Mecha Sonic, but a different Mecha Sonic. This is the same continuity, but they've ruined their own continuity by having more than one Mecha Sonics. But this is actually the whole Knuckles chaotic story, right? So what this ends up being is Metal Sonic Kai. But in this version, Knuckles turns big and they have this giant fight, and that's cool. In the Mecha Madness spinoff, we see Knuckles get roboticized, but to become Mecha Knuckles and fight Mecha Sonic. In the Sonic's Friendly Nemesis Knuckles spinoff, Dimitri's back, and he's now Interjack, and the Chaotix help fight him. And in the Super Sonic vs. Hyper Knuckles spinoff, Knuckles puts Mighty in charge of guarding the Emerald so he can do some business. It's a bunch of nonsense to get a quick brawl between Super Sonic and Hyper Knuckles going. Now let's hop over to the Fleetway UK comic series. Porker Lewis is now an evil robot of death. So Mighty and Vector use the ring link thing from the Chaotix game to take him down, which is pretty cool. But you see, this wasn't actually Porker, and the Brotherhood of Metallics is actually Skynet, and have used time travel already to win the fight against living things. So Mobius is now this Metallics planet, and their only hope to fix this is Robotnik. See, by not making Kintobor Robotnik, somehow the Metallics took over the world. Don't think about it, because it won't make sense. But back in the present, Robotnik has a kill switch, and he shuts off the massive army of the Metallics. And then he's like, I should have based it off Knuckles instead. Bingus! Other Sega stuff is here too, but it's really just Decapitac and Shining Force, because everything else is now Sonic or mini adventures of other Sonic characters. And also, the art and reviews. We still have the glorious art. There's even a thing about Nights into Dreams, so that's cool. And back to Sonic, Knuckles whoops Dr. Zachary and then spends the rest of his time doing the oddest and weirdest of quests, like talking to dinosaurs through crystals and trying not to be sacrificed by a hypnotized cult. Tails is doing the same stuff too, just weird ass adventures. At one point, in a mystical illusion, he is given a gun to snipe Robotnik in this weird parallel to the John F. Kennedy assassination. What the hell is happening to my Sonic comics? Brutus is here, and he makes his own badniks, and him and Robotnik have armies that go head to head, and Sonic and Short Fuse are stuck in the middle of it. Also, Johnny Lightfoot and Amy briefly end up roboticized. Porker is scared by what happened with Metallics, and he has decided he's going to go ahead and retire now. You always were soft, Porker. We're probably better off without you anyway. To which Amy rightfully calls him out and tells Sonic to leave Porker alone and that he's being a jerk. Amy in this version feels much more like Sonic's age, and she's intelligent and the best at solving problems with words. She'll even solve problems in ways that make it look like Sonic did it, so that Sonic can continue with his big ego, and she just won't take credit for it. She also still loves Sonic, and he doesn't like her back, so that's still the thing going on, but at least she feels like she's more his age here. Also, remember how Supersonic is bad in this universe? Well, he is bad, and Porker is hiding in terrified fear that Supersonic will kill him, which is fair enough, because once he shows up, he goes to kill everyone. Eventually, Supersonic and Sonic split up into two different beings, and they have to trap Supersonic in this fucking time-slowing thing, then put him on an asteroid far away from anyone so he can't hurt anyone while he escapes very slowly on this time thing. So we know he's gonna get free, we just don't know how long. Permission to panic, dear friends? All you have to look forward to now is fear and death. Some Charmy B panels include this one. Relive your worst nightmare, Charmy. Yow, criminy, oh no, not that, no. What's that, Charmy? It looks like he's been kidnapped. Charmy B drives everyone crazy. If he disappears, nobody is gonna miss him. All I have to do is walk away as if I haven't seen anything. Or this one where Sonic is offended about being called Charmy's friend, and he kinda tells him to handle his own shit. Also, Sonic had a clone that died, and I guess clones age super fast and then die, and then due to a lack of soul, they transform into energy and shoot off into the sky. Just important to know, maybe. Also, they shrunk Knack the Weasel, so small he's either nothing or microscopic now. Not sure which yet, well, I'll find out later if he never returns. This ran from issues 68 to 93. Alright, on to 1997.